I found the documents in Michael's briefcase at 2:47 a.m. My hands didn't shake as I photographed each page with my phone. The notary seal was fresh. The signature looked almost perfect. Almost. But I knew my own handwriting better than anyone alive. And that wasn't it. My son thought I was asleep upstairs. He thought grief had made me careless. He thought 6 months of playing the devoted son had earned him my trust. He was wrong on all 3 counts. I stood in the darkness of my study, listening to him snore in the guest room down the hall, and made a decision that would destroy my family. But then again, my family was already destroyed. I just didn't want to see it yet. Let me back up. Let me tell you how a father ends up photographing his son's fraud at 3 in the morning, trying not to wake the man who's plotting to steal his home. Martha died on a Tuesday in April. 43 years of marriage ended in a hospital room that smelled like disinfectant and old flowers. I held her hand until it went cold. Michael was there. He cried. I remember thinking how rare it was to see my son cry. He'd always been the stoic type, the one who kept emotions locked away like files in a cabinet. He stayed with me that first week, helped with the funeral arrangements, handled the endless paperwork that death generates. I was grateful. What father wouldn't be? Your wife dies. Your son steps up. That's how it's supposed to work. Dad, you shouldn't be alone right now, Michael said on the Sunday after we buried Martha. Let me and Jennifer move in for a while, just until you get back on your feet. I should have said no. The house felt empty without Martha, but it was still my house, still full of our things, our memories, our life together. But I was 68 years old and alone for the first time since college, and my son was offering to help. Just for a little while, I agreed. They moved in the next day. Looking back, I should have noticed how quickly they packed, like they'd been ready, like they'd been waiting. The first month was fine. Jennifer cooked dinners I barely tasted. Michael mowed the lawn, fixed the dripping faucet in the kitchen, replaced the batteries in the smoke detectors. They were helpful, attentive. I told myself I was lucky to have such caring kids. The second month, things started to feel different. Small things at first. Jennifer rearranging Martha's kitchen. Michael suggesting I should simplify and get rid of some furniture. Papers appearing on the dining room table that needed my signature. Just updating your insurance, Dad, Michael would say. This policy is ancient. We need to make sure you're covered. Or, the bank needs this form. New federal regulation. Everyone over 65 has to file it. I signed them. I trusted him. He was my son. It was the 3rd month when I started to notice the mail. Not all of it was making it to my desk anymore. I mentioned it to Michael over breakfast. The mail carrier must be getting sloppy, he said, not looking up from his phone. I'll talk to the post office. But then I saw a stack of envelopes in his car. My name on them, unopened. I didn't say anything. Not yet, but I started paying attention. I started noticing how Michael and Jennifer would stop talking when I entered a room, how they'd exchange looks I couldn't read, how Michael had started asking questions about my finances, casual questions. How much was the house worth? Did I have a will? What about the investments Martha and I had built up? Just trying to help you get organized, Dad, he'd say with that smile. That smile I'd once thought looked like mine. One afternoon in late July, I came home early from the doctor's office. My appointment had been canceled. I heard Michael on the phone in my study. The door was cracked open. The appraisal came in at $1.2 million, he was saying. Yeah, I know. In this market, we could probably get 1.4. We just need to wait a few more months. Make sure everything's in place. I stood in the hallway, barely breathing. He's not going to last forever anyway. The guy can barely remember what day it is. Yesterday, he asked where Mom was. Twice. That wasn't true. I never forgot Martha was gone. Not for a second. But I didn't correct him. I backed away slowly, went out the front door, got in my car, and drove around the block. When I came back, I announced myself loudly. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying that phone conversation, the coldness in his voice, the calculation. I wanted to believe I'd misunderstood, but at 2:30 a.m., I heard Michael's footsteps on the stairs, heard him enter my study, heard the file cabinet open, The one where I kept important documents. I got up quietly, walked down the hall in my slippers, keeping to the edges where the floorboards didn't creak, stood outside the study door. He was photocopying something. I could hear the machine's rhythm, then the soft sound of papers being replaced, the cabinet closing. I made it back to my room seconds before he passed in the hallway. The next morning, I checked the file cabinet. Everything looked normal. But when I examined my signature on certain documents, I saw the subtle differences. Someone had been practicing. Someone had been tracing. That's when I started looking. Really looking. I found the practice sheets in the recycling bin outside, buried under newspapers. Page after page of my signature. Getting better each time. I smoothed one out, held it up to the light. My name, but not my hand. I found the realtor's card in Jennifer's purse when she asked me to get her phone charger. Robert Chen, luxury properties specialist. A handwritten note on the back. Can list as is. Quick sale possible. I found the emails. Michael had gotten careless, left his laptop open. Messages to Jennifer about the timeline and when the old man finally signs the deed transfer and just a few more weeks of playing house. I should have confronted him, called the police, thrown them out, but something stopped me. Maybe it was the last shred of hope that I was wrong, that my son wasn't really planning to forge my signature and steal my house. Or maybe I just needed to know how far he'd go, how much of his father's life he was willing to destroy for money. So I started playing dumb, started acting more forgetful, started asking Jennifer what day it was, where Martha was, if we'd had lunch yet. I watched Michael's face light up each time. Watched him exchange satisfied looks with Jennifer. They thought grief was breaking me down. They thought I was becoming the confused old man they needed me to be. "Dad, we need to talk about the future," Michael said one evening in August. He sat me down at the kitchen table, Jennifer beside him. Both of them wore concerned expressions. "You're forgetting things, getting confused. We think it might be time to look at some options." "Options?" I asked, making my voice vague. "Care facilities? Nice ones. Places where they can keep an eye on you. Make sure you're safe." "I'm safe here," I said. "But you're not, Dad. What if you fall? What if you forget to turn off the stove? Jennifer and I can't be here 24 hours a day. We have our own lives to get back to. You want to put me in a home?" Michael reached across the table, patted my hand. The same hand he was learning to forge. "We want you to be taken care of. And we'd handle everything else. The house, the finances. You wouldn't have to worry about any of it." "I'll bet I wouldn't," I thought. But I just nodded slowly, like I was considering it. That night, I called my lawyer, Edward Patterson. We'd served in Vietnam together, back when we were kids who thought we'd live forever. He'd handled Martha's and my estate planning for 30 years. "Edward," I said quietly, standing in my backyard at midnight, phone pressed to my ear. "I need your help, and I need you to not ask questions yet." "What's wrong, Richard?" "I think my son is planning to forge my signature and steal my house." There was a pause. Then, "I'm listening." I told him everything. The phone conversation, the practice signatures, the emails, the pressure to sign documents, the talk about care facilities. "Don't sign anything," Edward said. "And Richard, start documenting everything. Every conversation, every document they put in front of you, every time they pressure you to sign something. We'll need evidence. I've been taking pictures." "Good. Keep doing that. And Richard, be careful. If they're desperate enough to commit fraud, they might be desperate enough for worse." I didn't want to think about what worse meant, but I started being more careful. Started making sure someone knew where I was. Started leaving notes for myself, hidden in places only I would look. The pressure increased in September. Michael started bringing home documents weekly, power of attorney forms, deed transfer papers, updated wills that left everything to him. "It's just smart planning, Dad," he'd say, "making sure everything's organized. You want things to be easy for me when, when the time comes. When I die, you mean." "Don't say it like that. I'm just trying to help." But I noticed he never left the documents with me overnight. Always took them back, said he'd file them somewhere safe. I started to understand the plan. He was going to forge my signature on the deed transfer, make it look like I'd willingly signed over the house. Then, when I was safely tucked away in some care facility, he'd sell it. By the time anyone questioned anything, I'd be dead or too confused to contradict him. It was almost impressive, in a horrifying way. Almost foolproof. One night in late September, I pretended to fall asleep in my armchair watching TV. Michael and Jennifer thought I was out. I kept my breathing slow and steady. Heard them talking in the kitchen. "We can't wait much longer," Jennifer said. "My sister's been asking questions. She thinks it's weird we're still here." "Just another month," Michael replied. "I'm almost ready. The signature's nearly perfect. I just need to make sure I can do it under pressure, when it counts." "What about the notary?" "I found one. Guy owes me a favor. Won't ask questions as long as the cash is good. And if your dad notices, he won't. Look at him. Half the time he doesn't even know what year it is. We've done a good job making him think he's losing it." I heard footsteps approaching, kept my eyes closed, felt Michael putting a blanket over me. "Sleep tight, Dad," he said softly, almost tenderly, like he used to when he was a boy and I'd tuck him into bed. For a moment, I wanted to grab his hand. Ask him where it all went wrong. Ask him when his father's love stopped being enough and money became everything. But I didn't move, didn't open my eyes, just let him cover me with the blanket and walk away. The next morning, I called Edward again. "It's time," I said. "I need you to set a trap." Here's what we did. Edward drew up a fake deed transfer, made it look real, with all the proper legal language. But he embedded mistakes in it, small ones that would prove in court that I never intended to sign it. He also installed cameras in my study, hidden in the bookshelf. Tiny things I'd never have noticed if he hadn't shown me where they were. "When he makes his move, we'll have everything on video," Edward said. "His face, his hand, signing your name, everything." "But Richard, are you sure about this? Once we do this, there's no going back. Your relationship with Michael is over." "It's already over," I said. "I just need to stop pretending it isn't." I left the fake deed transfer in my file cabinet, right where Michael would find it. Made sure he saw me putting it away. Made sure I mumbled something about finally getting the paperwork in order. I watched his eyes track the movement. Watched him file it away mentally. Then I waited. It happened on a Friday night in early October. I told Michael and Jennifer I was going to bed early. Wasn't feeling well. Took my phone with me, the one Edward had helped me set up to receive alerts from the hidden cameras. At 11:43 p.m., motion in the study. I watched on my phone as Michael entered, went straight to the file cabinet, pulled out the deed transfer. Watched him sit at my desk, take out a pen. Watched him pause, study my signature on another document he'd brought with him. Watched him practice twice on scratch paper. Then he signed my name, slow, careful, nearly perfect. I felt something break inside me. Some last hope that this wasn't really happening. He pulled out his phone, made a call. "I've got it," he said. "Yeah, tonight. Can you meet me at your office in 20 minutes? Okay. Yeah, I'll have the cash." He tucked the forged deed into a folder, put everything else back in the file cabinet exactly as he'd found it. Professional, practiced. Then he left. I waited 5 minutes, made sure he'd driven away. Then I called Edward. "He took the bait," I said. My voice sounded strange, hollow. "He's meeting the notary now." "I've got the video," Edward said. "I'm calling Detective Martinez. Are you ready for this?" Was I ready to have my son arrested? Ready to watch him go to prison? Ready to admit to the world that my own child had tried to rob me? "Yes," I said. Because what choice did I have? They arrested Michael at the notary's office. Detective Martinez later told me Michael had tried to run, had actually tried to run from the police. The notary sang like a bird, admitted Michael had paid him $5,000 to backdate the document and not ask questions. Jennifer claimed she didn't know anything about it. But the emails told a different story. The DA charged her as an accomplice. I sat in the detective's office the next morning, watching the video footage Edward had brought in, watching my son forge my signature, watching him commit a felony with my face on every frame. "Mr. Harrison," Detective Martinez said gently. She was young, maybe 40, with kind eyes. "I know this is hard, but you did the right thing. Elder fraud is serious. If you hadn't stopped him, he would have stolen everything your wife and you built together." "He's my son," I said, not defending him, just stating a fact that didn't make sense anymore. "I'm sorry," she said, and I could tell she meant it. The trial was in January. Michael's lawyer tried to argue that I'd been mentally incompetent, that I had agreed to sign over the house and just didn't remember. They brought in doctors to testify about age-related memory loss, about grief affecting cognitive function. Edward tore them apart. He showed the videos, the practice signatures, the emails planning the timeline, the phone call about the appraisal. My phone records proving I'd never forgotten Martha was dead, never asked what day it was except when performing for Michael's benefit. And then I testified. The prosecutor asked me to describe finding the practice sheets, hearing the phone call, watching my son commit fraud on camera. "He's my son," I said again. "I gave him everything, every opportunity, every advantage. I loved him more than my own life." And he looked at me and saw a bank account with an expiration date. Michael didn't testify. His lawyer advised against it. But I watched him during the trial, waited for remorse, for some sign that he understood what he'd done, what he'd destroyed. He just looked angry, like I was the one who'd wronged him, like I was supposed to have just died quietly and let him have his inheritance. The jury took 4 hours. Guilty on all counts. Elder fraud, attempted theft, conspiracy. The judge gave him 5 years. Jennifer got 3. Suspended with probation since she cooperated and testified against Michael. I sold the house in March. Couldn't stand to live there anymore. Every room reminded me of Michael growing up, of the boy he used to be before greed turned him into someone I didn't recognize. I bought a small condo near the ocean. Started over at 69. People ask me sometimes if I regret it. Turning in my own son, sending him to prison. I don't. I regret that he made it necessary. I regret that somewhere along the way, I raised a man who valued money over family, who could look at his grieving father and see only real estate. I regret that Martha died without knowing what her son had become. But I don't regret stopping him, because if I hadn't, I'd be in some nursing home right now, confused and medicated, and wondering why my son never visits. I'd be dead, probably, and Michael would be spending my money, living in my house, telling people what a good son he was to his poor, confused father at the end. I got a letter from him last month. From prison. The first contact since the trial. He said he was sorry. Said he'd been stressed, made bad decisions, got caught up in something he didn't know how to get out of. He said he hoped someday I'd forgive him. I haven't written back. I don't know if I will, because the thing about forgiveness is that it requires genuine remorse. And I'm not sure Michael understands what he should be sorry for. I think he's sorry he got caught, sorry he's in prison, but I don't think he's sorry he tried to steal from me. And maybe that's the hardest part. Not the betrayal itself, but knowing that my son would do it again if he thought he could get away with it. I think about Martha sometimes, wonder what she would say. She always believed the best in people, especially Michael. She made excuses when he borrowed money and never paid it back, when he missed holidays because something came up, when he only called when he needed something. "He's just busy," she'd say. "He's building his life. He'll come around." But he didn't come around. He came for the house, for the money, for everything we'd built so we could leave him something after we were gone. The irony is, if he'd just waited, it all would have been his eventually. I'm 69. I have maybe another decade if I'm lucky. The house, the investments, everything was going to him anyway. But he couldn't wait, couldn't let me have my grief, my memories, my home for a few more years. He had to have it now. And in trying to take it early, he lost it all. I sit on my balcony sometimes, watching the ocean, thinking about justice and family, and how much your own blood can hurt you. I think about those nights when Michael was little, when I'd read him bedtime stories and tuck him in, and think about what kind of man he'd become. I hoped he'd be better than me. Hoped he'd be kinder, wiser, more successful. I never imagined I'd be the one he'd victimize. Never thought I'd have to protect myself from my own child. But here we are. I've started volunteering at a senior center downtown, giving talks about elder fraud, about protecting yourself from financial abuse. You'd be amazed how many people have similar stories. Sons who steal, daughters who manipulate, grandchildren who forge signatures. It's an epidemic nobody talks about because we're all too ashamed to admit our own families would hurt us. But shame doesn't protect anyone. Silence doesn't stop fraud. So, I tell my story, show the warning signs, encourage people to trust their instincts, to verify everything, to protect themselves even when it feels like you're being paranoid. Because you're not paranoid if they're really trying to steal from you. And sometimes the person trying to steal from you is the person you love most in the world. That's the lesson Michael taught me. Not the one I wanted to learn. Not the one any parent should have to learn. But it's the truth. I keep Martha's picture on my desk. The two of us at our wedding, young and stupid and in love. I look at it sometimes and apologize for not seeing what Michael was becoming, for not being the kind of father who could have raised a better man, for leaving her before I could protect what we built together. But then I remember, I did protect it. I stopped him. I made sure that house, our house, didn't end up in his hands. That's something. It's not enough. It doesn't fix the broken pieces of my heart or bring back the son I thought I had. But it's something. And on the hard days, when I miss Martha so much I can barely breathe, when I think about Michael in prison and wonder if I should have handled things differently, I remind myself, I did the right thing. I protected myself. I sought justice. I refused to be a victim. That's all any of us can do when the people we love turn into people we don't recognize. We can grieve for who they used to be. We can mourn the relationship we thought we had, but we can't let them destroy us. Even if it breaks our hearts to stop them. Especially then,